this is the T34-85 Rudy, one of the tanks that is currently on sale on Black Friday. Now the cost of this tank is 3,250 gold, which isn't too bad because basically this is a T34-85 on steroids. Now we've been asked on the EU forum to do a more of a bigger overview on some of the tanks that you can get in Black Friday. So this is one of the tanks that I've picked because I think the Rudy is a great tank. Now let's find out why. Hello again everybody and welcome back to Fujit's Blitz, and today we're going to have a look at two tanks actually. We're looking at the T34-85 Rudy, which is a tier 7 Russian premium tank, and for comparison we're going to look at the other T34-85 premium tank, that of the Victory. Now whilst the T34-85 is a real tank, the Rudy is not a real tank. It was actually made popular from a Polish television service called Four Tank Men and a Dog, and it was originally released by Wargaming as part of the Great Patriotic War Victory celebrations. But I digress. Anyway, first and foremost, let's have a look at the Rudy. Now, this is a good friend of mine, Harrier77 of the NH6 clan, who I know from the EU forums, and a regular contributor to my channel, going out in the Rudy. Now, I think this is a great tank and a really good addition to the T34 line. I mean, as I say, it is effectively a T34-85 on steroids because everything seems to be bumped up apart from the damage. Now this tank is currently on sale in the Black Friday giveaway, so to speak, and it's currently costing 3,250 gold, which, to be perfectly honest with you, I think is a really good bargain price for this tier 7 medium. Now, a couple of facts, however. It is in theory a T34-85, but as I say, it's been buffed up a little bit. Now the T34-85 is a tier below, at tier 6, and it has DPM of 1,722, it has hit points of 930, it reloads in about 6.9 seconds, has a penetration of 144, and will dish out 200 damage, whereas this little beast of a thing will reload in 4.9 seconds. 2 seconds quicker. It has the same pen values and the same damage, however, 144 and 200 respectively, but its DPM is 2,689, which is massive. Plus, it has more hit points at 1,100. These set it aside from the T34-85. In other words, it's a bit more beefed up. Look at this. I mean, Harrier is knocking the bejesus out of the TDs in this red team, which is what you can do with this tank. I mean, the reload is unbelievably quick. I mean, when you're looking at 4.9 seconds, you can dish out a lot of damage, and you can see here how, you know, Harrier77 just sat on this hill, plopping away at this pure Churchill, and now he's got a Vindicator. Okay. The pen is the same as the T34-85, and the damage is the same as the T34-85. The big difference, it does it a lot quicker. It does struggle on occasion to penetrate. You will need to use APCR on occasion. You have no choice. And you've got to realistically run it with calibrated shells, else it will struggle to penetrate certain tanks, especially those in the tier 8 line, which is understandable. So it's effectively a T34-85, so it's effectively a tier 6 tank damage machine, but it will dish out a lot quicker damage, and it has more armor, effectively, well, more hit points. It's also got the strange quirky T34-85 armor, which, being Russian armor, you know, you can stick it in most places and it will bounce to its heart's content. It's got a great turn of speed. This is a sort of medium light tank. I mean, it's a T34 basically, and T34s have got a top speed of about 54-55 kilometers an hour. So you will get some good mobility out of this thing. And if you do what Harrier77 is doing, which is put it in a safest position, because most things can pen you at tier 8 and 7, because it's just the way it works, you can get a lot of fun out of this tank. Now, I actually love this tank. I think it's an amazing addition to the T34-85 line. Well, the T34 line, full stop. It's better than the T34-85, although it's punching above its weight to an extent. And it's better than the T34-85 Victory, which we'll get to soon. But again, this little thing is punching well above its weight. It realistically should be a tier 6, not tier 7 tank. But because of that HP and because of that reload time, which increases the DPM, it really has to go up. Now, Harry has had a great game there. I mean, it's a tough team. It's basically tier 7, tier 8. He's knocked out 1800 damage, got a nice third class, and he's done really well in it. And this is what I like about, oh, and he's the top tank player. Now, this is what I like about it. Now, just for comparison, here is Harrier 77 of NX6 again, going out in the T34-85 Victory, which is still a premium tank, but it's a tier lower. Now, for all intents and purposes, this is also a similar tank to the T34-85. However, the DPM is slightly increased. As I said, the T34-85 in the tech tree is 1,722 DPM, whereas this little one is 1,821. And the reason for that is because this has a 6.5 second, well, 6.7 second reload, which is slightly quicker by a gnat's knacker than the T34-85. Effectively, however, it's still a tier 6, it's still a T34-85, and it still operates pretty much the same way. It has the same penetration values, and it has the same damage, which, as I said earlier, is also the same as the Rudy. So damage and penetration wise, they're equal. Speed, they're equal. The only thing that sets it aside is effectively the hit points, which, as you can see here, is 990 compared to the T34-85, which is 930, and the Rudy, which is 1,100, and the reload times. The Rudy down to just shy of 5 seconds, and this one, you know, instead of having 6.9 second reload, it's a 6.7 second reload. Again, it's better to run calibrated shells with the Victory, because it can struggle to penetrate, but this one's not realistically punching above its weight. You'll find it between tier 5 and tier 7 because it's a tier 6 tank, and it can cope reasonably with those tiers, unlike the Rudy. The Rudy will struggle with tier 8s, and to an extent, some of the tier 7s, whereas the Victory doesn't. The Victory feels more at home. It's not outclassed, so to speak. Whereas, as I say, the Rudy can be, especially when you're looking against some of the tier 8 tanks. Now, don't forget, I mean, in tier 8, you've got things like the IS-6 and the Tiger II. These are difficult tanks to pen when you've only got 144 pen and you're only doing 200 damage. So, Rudy can struggle, but it is a fantastic tank. And if you get it in the right position, you will have fun. Whereas this little monster is slightly better than the T34-85, feels much more at home against tier 7 counterparts. And obviously with tier 5, it has no problem. I mean, it's got no problem where with the KV-1. And it can realistically hold its own in tier 5, tier 6, and to an extent, tier 7. This is the downside to the Rudy. The Rudy just does feel a little bit outgunned and outclassed when it faces tier 8s. But that shouldn't put you off, because you know, you've got slightly more hit points, so you can bounce a few, and you know, your armor's a little bit stronger. You've got a faster reload, and not only that, you've still got the fact that you've got good mobility to get around the back of tanks to cause them damage. Different style of gameplay with the Rudy, though. You've got to be more careful with it in tier 8. Now, this little thing, at tier 6, I think is fantastic. I mean, I do like the T34-85 line. And this one, with its slightly increased hit points and its slightly better reload, just sets it apart a little bit than the T34-85. And as you can see here, I mean, Harry is not having a problem at all penning any of these tanks in wiping up. He's done just shy of 1,700 damage. He's bounced nothing at the moment. He's got 3 kills. Maybe he can get to the KV-1 before the other. No, the T34-85 tech tree tank got there first. But this is a really good rollout. And as you can see, the gameplay is slightly different than the Rudy, because, like I say, this one feels more at home in you know, from tier 6 to 7, whereas the Rudy does struggle a bit. It really does, especially when it's looking at those bigger tier 7s and those really powerful tier 8s. So whereas in this, the T3485 Victory, you can play it like a T3485, you can't do the same thing with a Rudy, unfortunately. It just, you have to adapt your gameplay slightly. But that doesn't, oh look at that, he gets a well-deserved second class, 2,140, you know, look at that, top tank in the team, which is really well done. Now, this is me going out in the Rudy. Now, this is, as you can see, a tier 8 game. This is where the Rudy does struggle. This is where it feels a little bit undergunned and underpowered, and it doesn't like it. So you have to adapt your gameplay. Like I said with the Victory, you can take the Victory out and play it like a T3485. It feels perfectly at home in tier 5, tier 6, and tier 7. The Rudy will not like this tier 8 game. It has got some pretty big tanks to deal with. It's got the IS-5, the IX-6, the Louver, the Housing, and the Centurion. All these tanks will hurt it because it will be easily penned. It's a simple fact of life. It does get hurt. Now, it can hold its own to an extent, but you have got to be careful with this thing. I mean, look, you're not going to penetrate that Louver. It's just not possible. 144 pen value, it's just not going to happen. So it's better not to be there, and it's better to get out of there. Oh, and you get one up the backside from the Louver just to remind you that you're sort of outgunned and outclassed. So you've got to play this one differently. You cannot play it like your bog standard T3485, and you certainly can't play it like the T3485 Victory. You've got to adapt your gameplay. This is more of a sneaky tank at this tier. So we've got a T26E4 there. We put one into his back, and now we've got to get away because he would absolutely obliterate us, to be perfectly honest with you, because he will pen me as if I'm going out of fashion. So we have to run away, which we do. We're constantly worried about these big tanks. I mean, there's an IS-6, there's a Louver, there's the IS-5. These are going to be big damage machines to this little thing. So you've got to play it conservatively. And as you can see there, I mean, standard AP, you're not going to get anything into the IS-6. So you've got to switch it to APCR. And I'm running calibrated shells on this, but now I can pen the IS-6, and here goes. I've got to stay on APCR because all those tanks are just big red tomatoes to me. I can pen none of them with standard AP unless I get round the back. I'm being taken lots of hit points away from me here. I'm in trouble. I mean, I get a good roll there, 213, but that's because I had the sort of booster type thingy on it. But, you know, I've done just over 1,000 damage. I'm holding my own against these two bigger tanks. I mean, they are tier 8. They are big damage machines, and they are certainly able to wipe me out. I'm struggling to pen them, even with APCR, because I've only got 144 pen. I've got calibrated shells, and it's still a bit of a struggle. But we're doing okay. Now we're just shy of 1,500 damage. We've only got 200 odd hit points left ourselves. They've only got one left. We're winning on points anyway. Not a bad run out. But this is the difference. This is the point I'm trying to make. You have to play this tank a lot more conservatively than you would play the T3485. But I like the Rudy. It's a beautiful tank to go out in. And we get a second class for Admirables. We're pretty low down the list because we're tier 7. I mean, we're not going to be dishing out the damage. And I also did a comparison. And this is the T3485 Victory in a tier 6, tier 7 game, just to show you the difference in gameplay between the two. Now, the Rudy felt a little bit outgunned and outclassed in the last game, and it was constantly worried about those bigger bullies wiping it out. Whereas in this game, the T3485 Victory, okay, he's still going to get some penetration into him, but look, he has much more fun. He really does. He's getting good damage into this Chaffee. I mean, the Chaffee was completely penetrable. Yeah, I can pen every part of him. We've got a Cromwell, and we've got two Cromwell buddies, a T3485. We're having no problems in penning these now. We are having, this tank now can really go to town, and it can really have some fun. And in short space of time, we've done 621 damage. We've bounced nothing. Okay, we're in a different position, but we're now front line. You couldn't be front line in the last game with the Rudy because you would have just got wiped out, as we saw. I mean, 2 shots from the Louvre really hurt the poor old Rudy, whereas 1 shot here from the Cromwell B, okay, it's taken a bit off, but not much. And this is the difference. I mean, now it's not as outgunned. It doesn't feel so outclassed as it is in a Tier 8 game. And, you know, I like the Rudy at Tier 8. It's a different gameplay. But the T34A5 Victory is a nice premium tank. And it plays like a T34, albeit slightly quicker with better armor. Well, better hit points. So, I mean, whilst the Rudy is a nice tank, and I thoroughly recommend, if you're looking to spend anything in the Black Friday sale, I would recommend considering the Rudy. It is a tank that isn't for the faint-hearted. You really need to know how to play that tank, because at that tier, it's incredible. Oh, that was really lucky. The KV2 just really missed. Because when you get to Tier 8 in the Rudy, you will struggle. And if you haven't got the right style of gameplay to adapt, then you will not get on with the tank. It's a simple fact of life. It is that sort of a beast. But as I said, I mean, I like the Rudy. I think the Rudy is a great tank. I think it's well worth the investment, and I think it's what you should look at. Anyway, guys, that's enough on the T34A5 Victory and Rudy. I hope this has been informative. Like I said, this was a requested review by some of my friends on the EU forum, namely Major Easy and Colmain595. And this review wouldn't have been possible without the assistance of my other good friend, Harrier77, who obviously contributed some of his replays in order to make this happen. As I said before, guys, you know, I'm not the best player in Blitz. Harrier, by the way, is a lot better than me. And I'm certainly not a person to go around and tell you, you need to buy this tank or that tank. Now, I'm not sponsored by Wargaming. I don't work for Wargaming, and I have no affiliation to them at all. I do this for a bit of fun because I like to try and help people effectively. So all I'm saying in this is, if it was me, I would seriously consider dropping 3,250 gold for this tank because it's a nice tank. It's a difficult tank because it's punching above its weight, but it's a beautiful tank, realistically. If you have a different opinion, by all means, share your opinion. You know, comment below. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that the Rudy is not as good as we think, and that nobody should really consider buying it, that there are better tanks out there that you can waste your money on. Alternatively, press subscribe, guys. I mean, help me to help all the other people, and together we'll get a better community. And with that, if you've got better gameplays than we have, which undoubtedly you will have, send them to me, email them to me at fujitsblitz@gmail.com. And we'll get them shown. Together we can show players how to improve. And with that, all I can say is stay safe, have fun out there, and happy tanking, because that's what it's all about. Fun and happiness. Hey, I've been Fujit and you've been great. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. And I'd love if you would press subscribe. Who knows, we can do some more. By all means, drop me comments, tell me what can be improved, and tell me what you'd like to see. I'd really love to know. Anyway, until the next time, guys, happy tanking.